Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 12-game NFL slate for you to look at that. Before I get started, you guys smash that like and subscribe button. All right, so we have a pretty interesting slate here. I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up. So we're going to start with our defenses here. We do have some defenses that look pretty solid today. One being Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they're actually a little bit cheaper today, which is definitely nice. Um, they've managed to not really score a ton of fantasy points yet, but they have a good defense that can do some stuff, and this positive matchup against Denver, who really does struggle sometimes to score, and so I think they're a great option. Tennessee, the Titans are also somewhat interesting today. Their defense is improved, though it is a high risk, high reward situation, but with Green Bay being injury prone right now. I think they're going to have some advantage here, and I don't think Green Bay will score a ton. I also think Indianapolis, the Colts, are in an interesting spot against Chicago, who has struggled offensively, and I think that they have some potential for a decent game as well. The top ownership will be Tampa Bay, Tennessee, and then Miami Dolphins, who are somewhat of a contrarian play, but they can definitely get some sacks and things. Let's look at our tight ends. We're going to look at Trey McBride as our top play here. He started the season pretty solid with two really good games. I think he can continue that here. Hopefully, he can score a touchdown as well. They do tend to. They have been scoring a lot of points, but he hasn't gotten a lot of them. But he's a good safety valve, and he's turning to be one of the better options at tight end so far this season. Jake Ferguson is a little bit cheaper for Dallas, and he's definitely a guy that has some potential. Now, he didn't do much in his first couple games, but because he's been injured, but he is capable of a solid game here if he can get some touches, which he should be able to get now that he potentially is back from injury. I also like Brock Bowers a lot today for Las Vegas. He's been phenomenal to start. He's had two really solid games. Hadn't had a touchdown yet either, but he's going to get a lot of opportunities. Him and Devontae Adams obviously going to be the biggest factors on the Raiders, and I look for him to be a top tier option today. He's probably a guy that I would almost make a core play because even though he's priced up a little bit, he's decently priced for the position. Look at our wide receivers here. Brandon Ayuk, let's see, looks really solid and he's priced pretty fair. He really hasn't done a ton in his first two games, but he's definitely going to get the opportunity as he's going to be the number one guy here with Samuel out. Uh, so I think he should be a great option here on the slate, and he's priced really fair. Devontae Smith, uh, oopsie, uh, for where'd he go? Sorry about that. For Philly, he's a little bit more expensive, but he also has a lot of upside. He's had two really big games to start the season. I look for him to continue that. He's going to go along with our quarterbacks, looking at Jalen Hurts as a top tier option, and Smith will have a really good opportunity to be paired with him if you can make it work. It's definitely worth a look that perspective. Nico Collins also looking fantastic today for Houston. I think he's in a pretty solid spot, though he is very expensive. He's had some really awesome games to start this season, so he's definitely somebody you got to look at and consider. Some other guys to consider: DK Metcalf, Chris Olave, Tank Dell, Chris Godwin, Jordan Whittington, Deontay Johnson, Jackson Smith, and Najiba, DJ Moore, and Rashid Shaheed. The ownership will go with Ayuk, Devontae Smith, Nico Collins, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Malik Neighbors, and Tank Dell. So to keep that in mind. Looking at our running backs here, it's a little bit simpler here where we have Jordan Mason, who's been absolutely phenomenal so far in his first couple starts. And I look for him to continue to be a guy that gets 20 to 25 rushes and gets some touchdowns. And he has some potential for some receptions. So he's definitely worth a look. And his price is still pretty down. So he's almost a must play from that perspective, especially in the positive matchup here. Ekane for Miami also looks interesting. He's kind of struggled so far, but he gets a lot of receptions. So that from the running, I should say, he struggled in the first game, did good in the second game, but he does get a lot of receptions that makes him a very easy to play, as he's priced pretty fair and has a lot of upside as a result. Alvin Kamara does look really good, though he's a little bit more expensive. He's been phenomenal to start the season. I think he's near a must play with a touchdown potential, but he is a little bit riskier than a Kane because he's a little bit cheap, a little bit more expensive. And then kind of another guy to look at is Carbonet for Seattle in a cheap option here Doesn't have as much upside as Jordan Mason, and he's priced similar, but he definitely has some potential with some of those receptions going for potential touchdowns. Let's look at our quarterbacks. Let me say the ownership at running back: Jordan Mason, Alvin Kamara, Cam Akers, Devin Akane, and Zach Carbonet. So looking at our quarterbacks now, Jalen Hurts is going to be a top tier option. He is very expensive. He's been phenomenal though to start the year with two really solid games. I look for him to continue that. I also like Geno Smith here as a cheap play for Seattle. He does have a tough matchup defensively, but he's been solid enough in the first two games against two teams that have tend to be decent defensively, especially Denver. So I look for him to be a nice cheap option. He probably won't get a ton of ownership, but I think he's a viable play. And then C.J. Stroud for for Houston has an interesting matchup against Minnesota. Interestingly positive matchup against Detroit, though he is a little bit riskier than some of the other options due to price points. So with that.